Welcome back, everyone. This second portion of today's town hall will feature three segments and three speakers. We'll hear from the Department of Energy, Fluor, representative from Fluor, as well as representative from NuScale. I will introduce each of them as I did prior. The next break will begin at 11:45. As always, please feel free to ask questions. There will also be a time at the end to follow up on some additional questions if you have not received an answer. We'll first start with Alice Capinetti. She serves as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Reactor Fleet and Advanced Reactor Development in the Office of Nuclear Energy at the Department of Energy. Part of her responsibilities, amongst others, include advanced reactor development activities, including micro reactors, competitive R&D and infrastructure investment programs, innovative nuclear research and advanced modeling and simulation, advanced manufacturing, and other cross-cutting areas. Ms. Capinetti previously led efforts to design, build, test, and deliver safe and reliable nuclear power systems for space exploration and national security applications, and conducted detailed safety analysis for each mission. So with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Capinetti. Thank you.
Hey, good morning and good afternoon, everybody. I appreciate this opportunity for me to talk about the Department of Energy support for the carbon-free power project. So I'm going to ask for my slides to be advanced. Go ahead and advance to the next slide. As context setting, I wanted to talk about our overarching mission at the Office of Nuclear Energy, and that is to advance nuclear power to meet the nation's energy, environment, and national security needs. And we do this by resolving the technical costs, safety, security, and regulatory challenges for these technologies through development and demonstration. So our mission spans 4 key pillars. That's preserving the existing fleet, supporting advanced reactor deployment, addressing challenges associated with the front end and back end of the fuel cycle, including availability of fuel for some of the advanced concepts coming along, and also addressing barriers to global competitiveness of these technologies. So today's talk obviously centers on our pillar associated with advanced reactor deployment. Next slide, please. In the United States, we have a very promising landscape of nuclear technology development. Over 60 US companies and research institutions are in the process of developing new reactor designs to meet future energy needs. So this includes light water, small modular reactors such as NuScale. It also includes innovative technologies of reactors that are cooled by metal, cooled by gas and salt. And so while light water SMRs such as NuScale are built on very mature demonstrated technologies, we have other innovative concepts coming along that are supported from decades of research and development at the Department of Energy. And we see these designs also moving toward commercialization, although on a longer time frame. And also included in this set of concepts are microreactors, which are very small. So while SMRs are 300 megawatt electric or smaller, microreactors are much smaller, so on the order of 20 or less, down to single megawatts of electric. So a very broad landscape. Next slide, please. So the Office of Nuclear Energy has a couple of funding programs to support movement of these designs toward commercialization. First is the Advanced SMR R&D program that was initiated in 2019. And this program was focused on domestic development of light water SMRs. New in this fiscal year, 2020, Congress created a new program called the Advanced Reactor Demonstration Program. And that program is to result in the demonstration of multiple advanced reactor designs at various stages of development. So included in this new program is construction of 2 demonstration reactors within 5 to 7 years of award, so in a very, very aggressive time frame. It also supports competitive opportunities for less mature technologies that are not approaching demonstration in the near term, but have some technical issues to resolve through other awards. And the solicitation for this program is now underway. So applications are due for this program on August 12, and we expect awards to be announced by the end of this fiscal year. When Congress set up this new program, the Advanced Reactor Demonstration Program, it did provide some very specific language that any entity that receives fiscal year 2020 funds of more than $200,000 from the Advanced SMR R&D program is not eligible to receive FY20 funds in the new Advanced Reactor Demonstration Program. So what this means is for the NuScale technologies, which have been funded out of the Advanced SMR R&D work, the Advanced SMR R&D program is the funding program that is supporting our work for NuScale. So it's important just to see that context. And so the rest of my talk is going to really focus on the Advanced SMR R&D program that's relevant to the carbon-free power project. So next slide, please. NE is in its 9th year of providing direct support for SMR technologies. And that support was initiated in 2012 with the SMR Licensing Technical Support Program. Our sustained investment in light water SMRs reflects the benefits that we want to achieve from these designs. It includes enhanced safety features, improved economics, including lower capital investments required relative to the large plants of our existing fleet, modularity and siting flexibility, as well as flexible products of electricity and non-electric products like process heat for a number of economic products. We recognize the importance of having nuclear innovation in the United States. It's an important job driver and economic driver. And so this program fits squarely within our goals to support development of these technologies with U.S. companies for deployment here in the United States and also for global products, so the global marketplace. Next slide, please. So for funding, the Advanced SMR R&D program, again initiated in 2019, received $100 million in 2019. Similarly, it was funded in FY20 at the $100 million level. We are now in the process of learning what our FY21 appropriation will be. So currently we have marks from the House appropriators, which provided base program funding for Advanced SMR R&D at the level of $105 million. In addition, there's emergency funding that's part of the House marks that would provide $192 million for SMR programs. That language in the emergency funding can support demonstration and provides expectations of what a demonstration program will look like in terms of cost share. So we see this picture from the House. We are still waiting for the Senate to provide its marks, and ultimately we'll learn whether we're operating under a conference appropriation or continuing resolution. So this is where we are in budget space. We're familiar territory for those who work with government programs. So next slide, please. So DOE has typically supported reactor development efforts through cost share cooperative agreements. And examples are the the AP 1000 work that was supported, as well as the ESBWR. For the carbon-free power project in the mid to late 2010 timeframe, we were looking at supporting the carbon-free power project through other mechanisms. So the joint use modular plant, which would provide research capabilities associated with the NuScale Power module, as well as power purchase agreement for the Idaho National Laboratory. So those were mechanisms that we were looking to support the carbon-free power project. However, in really examining these options, we came to the conclusion that it made more sense to support this effort through a straight cost share, as we have done in prior programs, because it's a more efficient way of funding the program. And so, for example, power purchase agreements, currently the government is limited to 10-year terms for such agreements. For the JUMP module, there would, we would be limited in our ability to pay for that support right now in the current appropriation picture. So that is why we were focusing our resources on getting into a cooperative agreement, and you've heard the award that we're working on described. So we are in the process of developing that award, and a procurement package for this award is now currently under review at the Department of Energy. Next slide, please. Okay, so at this point, I'd be happy to open up to questions, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Perfect. We do have a question. Do other technologies applying for DOE grants have the potential to dilute the award and appropriations for the NuScale project? Thanks.
If I understand dilute, you mean in terms of whether in a funding line NuScale is treated differently? Right now, NuScale is being supported under the Advanced SMR R&D funding program. And as I laid out in the funding profile, we're looking at that funding line to support the carbon-free power project in NuScale. The new Advanced Reactor Demonstration Program is a different part of the budget. And so how we operate in those two funding lines shouldn't affect each other.
Perfect. One other question. What would be if you could describe the effect of an administration change on DOE's goals regarding SMR funding?
As you can see from the time frame that we've been supporting these programs, I do not expect any impact, because, as has been mentioned previously, advanced nuclear power has strong bipartisan, bicameral support, and we've seen that very consistently over the past several years. And I think everyone recognizes the importance of having nuclear power as part of our energy mix moving into the future.
Perfect. I see no other questions. Thank you so much, Ms. Capinetti.
Thank you.
And as someone who does work on the government affairs side of UAMPS, I would just comment and reiterate, yeah, it is something that we're seeing very strong support, both bicamerally and across administration. So it's a very promising sign when talking about appropriations, to see the trend keep stable or increase as far as appropriations. Our next speaker will be Alan Beckman, representing Fluor Corporation. Mr. Beckman is the executive chairman of Fluor Corporation, one of the world's leading and largest engineering, procurement, fabrication, construction, and maintenance services companies. Mr. Beckman joined Fluor as an engineer in 1974 and retired as CEO in 2012. In addition to serving on Fluor's board, he currently serves on the board of Sempra Energy and has prior corporate experience with BP, Archer Daniels Midland, BNSF Railway, and BHP Billiton. Mr. Beckman, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I'd like to thank Doug Hunter also for the opportunity to speak with you today. It's a pleasure to speak to all the constituents that have signed up for this fantastic project that we're quite excited about. It's also really appropriate that I come in right after Mrs. Capinetti. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Fluor has had a long relationship and a strong current relationship with the Department of Energy. But very specifically, I would like to recognize their continuing support since 2012 of the NuScale technology. We would not be where we're at today without that unwavering support. So we very truly appreciate it. If you could, and advance the next slide, I'd really like to start off by telling you just a little bit about Fluor Corporation. Even though we are one of the largest engineering, procurement, construction, and maintenance facilities in the world, oftentimes we're not a household name. The company was founded in 1912, so it's been 108 years of serving our clients in a very diversified field of industries. We design and build capital-efficient facilities on 6 continents. We operate in over 60 countries. We are a Fortune 500 company, and we employ over 50,000 employees on a global basis. We're headquartered in Dallas, Texas. Next slide, please. We pride ourselves on being the safest of all the construction companies and the most ethical as well. We make a habit of doing fit-for-purpose services. In other words, we want to design cost-competitive solutions, and I think a number of the comments that you heard from Mason, we believe in those philosophies every step of the way. One of the things that we do is we have probably the best supply chain system among all of our competitors, and we leverage our global procurement network and our in-country suppliers to provide competitive solutions. I think we have a reputation, and a well-deserved one, for taking on some of the most challenging and remote projects in remote environments around the world, and we're committed to a sustainable solution for projects. We have a strong track record of eliminating and optimizing energy usage, water usage. We have several strong technologies that actually clean the environment from the projects that we execute. Next slide, please. I know this one is a little hard to read, so if you will, just kind of enjoy the visual impact of it. What it is it's a depiction of Fluor's involvement in nuclear projects, both reactor construction, A&E services, nuclear fuel operations, facilities, decontamination. And our history with nuclear started literally during World War II with the Manhattan Project. We maintain our strong credentials in the whole nuclear industry and are able to work on projects of any size. I will mention that you will see in there an involvement that we had in the most recent projects for Vogtle and Sumner. I'd like to make sure you know that we were called in towards the end of those projects to be able to take over for contractors who were being replaced, and we could finish up on a number of those activities. It did allow us, as has been mentioned though, to take a number of lessons learned from what had gone on before on those projects. And Mason said it appropriately, and I will repeat it in my presentation, and that is being prepared with a completed, mature design before you move into construction. Next slide, please. Fluor has been an owner in NuScale since 2011. We have provided nearly $600 million of direct funds to NuScale to date. That has put us in a position of owning a little over 90% of the preferred shares in the LLC. On a fully diluted basis, we still are over a 70% owner. We are actively recruiting other investors, and NuScale's progress to date with where they stand in the NRC approval has generated significant interest among owners. We brought in 3 new equity investors in this last year, and we are currently discussing with four and possibly a 5th significant investor that we hope will come in to this company and as a result, this project. Our commitment to NuScale is clear, and its success as we see it, is tied to a very successful first project, the CFPP project. We are continuing to invest in NuScale, and we'll be working with other investors to make sure that it remains supported through the entire phase of this project and on into commercialization. Next slide, please. I think it's important to talk about some of the support that Fluor has given to NuScale that is not direct financial support. Through the expertise that we've developed over all the time and the technical processes that we have, we've had ongoing constructability reviews of the module and the surrounding plant. We have participated, as you have heard, this module is built in a controlled environment in a manufacturing facility and then shipped to site. Fluor has significant experience in the modularization, the logistics around modularization, and the ability to make sure that the transport is safe and efficient and results in a safe and effective installation at the site. We have significant databases on cost estimating and have provided that expertise into the current phase 4 estimate, class 4 estimate. And we have done the schedule estimate at this point in time as well that surrounds this project, and we'll be continuing to update both the cost and the schedule estimates as Mason mentioned. I think one of the most significant things, though, is Fluor has performed value engineering reviews, and we have identified over $490 million of savings to date for the specific installation of the entire plant. And those reviews have been reviewed with the DOE and with the UAMPS client. We are planning to be the EPC contractor for the clean carbon-free power project. And as we go forward, you'll hear me say this a couple of times. We want to make CFPP a success for all of the constituents. And by doing so, we guarantee the success of NuScale and Fluor in its investment. Next slide, please. Let's talk specifically about the support we have provided and are providing for UAMPS. We have an executive resident in the UAMPS office in Salt Lake City. I personally was involved in selecting the Fluor's best project director for the delivery of this site, and he is actively involved with UAMPS and with the owner's engineers in taking this project forward. We are leveraging our expertise that is resident at the INL site. Fluor has been involved in at INL over a number of decades, and we are currently involved in several projects there to date. That's given us a great knowledge base of the locale, of the suppliers in the area, and very specifically the labor that's available in that region. We have strong relationships with the labor unions in that part of Idaho. Next slide, please. This really demands to talk about it again. You have to plan well to go to the field. And when the design is mature, and it's not just the maturity of the design, it's the planning that goes into the logistics. It's the planning that goes into the construction, into your labor posture, into your ability to mitigate the risks around everything concerned with that site. We are also, and I think it's very important to note, are leveraging the non-safety aspect, the non-nuclear safety aspect of the NuScale design to reduce the cost of both the power island and the balance of plant. NuScale has no nuclear safety systems that are outside of the reactor building. This is extremely unique to the NuScale technology and provides a dramatic advantage in so many ways of reducing the cost, the efficiency, and the safety of the completed project. I'd like to talk a little bit about the transparency that is being practiced with UAMPS, with Fluor, with NuScale, and with the owner's engineer, Burns and McDonnell. We are, as we go through this project, in any project that is to go forward in a lump sum turnkey fashion with the contractor, if you do that very early, the client winds up paying a significant amount for the contingencies that the contractor must put into their bid to counter the identified risks. What we're doing is working hand in glove with UAMPS to take those risks off of the table. For example, as we go through and before we get into final notice to proceed, we will know who the suppliers are for all of the major equipment. We will have negotiated costs and terms and delivery specifically with each of these vendors. We will know the quantities of all of the material for the site: pipe, concrete, steel, cable. We will also know all of the control systems and be able to have contracts in place to be able to, again, identify the cost, fix the cost, and fix the terms and conditions around each of those contracts and subcontracts. This is critically important in coming to a final price that gives everybody the confidence at the class 1 estimate that we have mitigated those risks and result in a very minimal optimized contingency for the entire project. This is a proven process. Fluor has used it many times before with great success. It is considered a best in class for both clients and contractors. And through that entire process, Fluor has robust risk management systems that we will apply. I'd like to go back to that word transparently again, because as Fluor works with all of the suppliers, the equipment suppliers, the material suppliers, and the subcontractors for construction, UAMPS and the owner's engineer will be involved and sitting at the table to be with us and to know those issues and risks and be able to agree on the terms, conditions, and price of all of those negotiations. So Fluor, at the end of this process, as you go into construction, will provide a risk-optimized lump sum that will have a very mature design and will have a complete identification of all the quantities and the price for all of the components that go into this project. Next slide, please. I think I can safely say that with our investment in NuScale and our dedication to the Department of Energy and to UAMPS, there is no EPC contractor that is more motivated than Fluor to make this project successful. We're totally committed to deliver this successfully for UAMPS, for DOE, NuScale, and certainly for ourselves. I think we would like to just for a second step back and talk about the strategic importance of what we're doing here. There is a global competition in the nuclear arena for deploying SMR technology. Right now, and I think John will speak to this, that technology, the main global competitors are out of China and out of Russia. It is very important and strategically important that the United States lead in SMR deployment globally. We want to be the leader in building the NuScale SMR that fulfills that strategy. And I will say it again, Fluor and NuScale success relies on a very successful carbon-free power project for UAMPS and for all of you. We appreciate very much your trust in us, and we will reward you with a successful project. And with that, I will be willing to take any questions that are there.
Thank you. This question I'm probably going to redirect. There's not a question for you right now, Mr. Beckman, but this question does look like it's directed at Capinetti. Well, it could be open to anyone, I guess, as I read further. This project, the question reads, will this project be built on a DOE site like INL? And if so, which it will be, to answer that already. If so, construction costs can be expected. Can construction costs be expected to be a multiple of what they normally are due to all the required policies and procedures that must be complied with? I'll throw that out to anyone, including Mr. Hopkins, if you have an interest in addressing that.
Well, Mike, I'll take that. I'll start at least. This is going to be executed as a typical commercial power plant project. Now, clearly, we have some safety issues that are very applicable from the NRC and DOE. We do not see those adding to the cost. We have incorporated those both in the technology that NuScale has put out and also in the planning that we have around executing this project. I don't know, I'd be glad, Mr. Caponetti or John, to speak to that if they'd like.
Well, I could weigh in as well. That's been a specific, we've discussed that. We have a group up in Southeast Idaho that Fluor is a participant, NuScale is a participant, UAMPS is as well. The Navy, because of their construction activities, are also up there. INL with their various construction projects. So as I mentioned on the site, and Mr. Wagner could speak to this later too, we'll have him bring this up, but we're away from all the other central facilities, our site. Where I said we're over on the west side of the site. There are no facilities of INL over there, so we won't be interfering or have to go through those security checks. We'll have our own security and stuff sitting over on the other side. Labor equalization, the agreements that are in place on the site. We were planning on meeting that concept anyway. That's just basically we got union and non-union, workforces that come into play, and we pay accordingly to the federal law that way, since we're taking DOE money as well. So I know of nothing that specifically is going to cost us more. If I could, I put a shout out to the INL DOE. Is that the INL site currently is going under a senior seismic hazard advisory committee review for the entire site that INL DOE has to do normally on the thing, and they have graciously included us in that shack analysis, if you will, out there, which is actually saving us money to meet into that program. So I know of nothing that's contemplated on that, and like I said, we pretty well addressed a number of the issues around labor already in amongst the groups, all the facilities.
Very good. It looks like there are no questions at the moment, and I appreciate everyone's patience as I try to address and read and understand the questions so I can best deliver that to those who are speaking today. We're going to now proceed to hear from John Hopkins. Mr. Hopkins is the chairman and CEO of NuScale Power, a leading U.S.-based advanced SMR technology development company. Prior to joining NuScale in 2012, Hopkins was with Fluor Corporation, and Hopkins has held numerous leadership positions in global operations and business development, and is very active in the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. So, Mr. Hopkins, thank you.
Yes, would help to unmute. My apologies. I was saying it's an honor to be here today with everybody, and this is a significant town hall meeting for all of us here to talk about the path forward of this project going forward and what we envision as the future. Next slide, please. I'd like just to make a comment. NuScale over the years has been very proud to be the recipient of commercially bid financial assistance from the DOE. We truly have a public-private partnership with our government and private investors such as Fluor Corporation. And I would also just like to add that the comments I make today are comments coming from NuScale and not necessarily those from the Department of Energy. Next slide. For those who are probably less familiar with NuScale, this process started 20 years ago when the Department of Energy put forth a program entitled the Multiple Application of Small Light Water Reactors. They approached Oregon State University in the year 2000, Dr. Jose Reyes, and Dr. Reyes is today's Chief Technology Officer for NuScale. And it was a daunting challenge. The challenge was, with safety in mind, not to take a large reactor and try to scale it down, but take a new reactor and build it from the bottoms up. And that was what Dr. Reyes and the team at INL in Oregon State worked on through 2007 when Dr. Reyes envisioned there's commercial viability with this commercial reactor. In 2019, but what happened was that two things had to happen to really get us off the ground as NuScale. One was, as Alan mentioned, in 2011, Fluor Corporation became NuScale's lead investor. And then secondly, in 2013, NuScale won a competitively bid cost share award with the US DOE, and we have since received over $300 million in funding from the department. We've worked actively on patents. We're in 20 countries with over 530 patents, 400 employees in our offices. Majority of these are in Corvallis, adjacent to Oregon State University, where our operations center is. We're going through a rigorous design review by the NRC. We're the only small modular reactor that is currently getting through this process and will be complete, and we're on schedule for 2020. And amazingly, total investment to date for NuScale between our government, Fluor Corporation, and some of our suppliers has now exceeded $950 million in cash. And this doesn't include a lot of the so-called in-kind services that suppliers and Fluor have offered us. Fluor has been working diligently with us on government relations and working a hill on both sides of the aisle. And as Ms. Capernetti mentioned earlier, we're showing great promise in both the Ds and the Rs in support of advanced nuclear. And recently, I think it was last week, there was an announcement on the House for the Clean Energy Initiative panel that they included nuclear as part of the overall makeup to ensure that the clean energy mandates going forward will be adhered to. Next slide, please. Our mission is very simple. It's, as was commented earlier, these units are, each one are independent of one another. So for 1,200, or for 12 modules in a plant, the 720 megawatts, what we have envisioned is that you could use 1 or 2, 3, 4 of these modules to produce enough energy to provide energy requirements for reverse osmosis desalination, for clean water. A good example, as we look globally, and everybody is understanding and appreciative, particularly being out here in the West, water is gold and it's precious, and we're seeing, particularly in areas of sub-Saharan Africa, a good example would be Cape Horn, in South Africa. The water requirements there of a city of 3.7 million people who are quickly running out of water. If you had one 12-pack up and operational, you'd be able to provide enough clean water for that entire town. Next slide, please. It's a new energy source. Smart energy, as we required, is highly reliable to mission-critical energies. Also, as Doug alluded to, we serve as a baseload power, and we integrate and complement renewables. We have written technical papers on how to integrate with renewable resources. Cleaner energy, it is 100% carbon-free. It's safe. We have been working through an extremely rigorous process with the NRC. Should, for whatever reason, a NuScale SMR have to shut itself down, we have no need for any operator intervention, no additional water requirements, and no AC or DC power needed. And for those of you who remember the event at Fukushima, what the result of that was not so much, it was the tsunami that came over the top and knocked out their backup power generation. NuScale has no requirements for backup. In fact, we are currently working with the Japanese Minister of Economic Trade and Industry doing seismic analysis for potential NuScale deployment within the country of Japan. Cost competitiveness, for me, it's not a matter whether this application or machine will work. It's about commercial viability. And as the civil works are being prepared by Fluor and others at the INL site, we'll be fabricating our modules offsite in a factory to be shipped at a later date. Next slide, please. Blazing a trail of commercialization. As I mentioned, we are ahead of the pack, and it's been a very daunting challenge. This just kind of depicts going over the years what we had to do to get to the point of where we are today at $950 million in cash. And if you take in consideration any new technology, be it combustion engineering or a health drug, COVID-19 research, generally all these are over $1 billion, and we're finding the same thing here. And so we're looking to be about at $1.4 billion to get to the commercial operations, a COD, and we're tracking very well. Next slide. People often mention first of a kind. I look at this and I view the NuScale module really, it's a very eloquent, simplistic design. Of the $900 million, much of that money has gone into code development, modeling, and scaling up our components. As an example, if you see the picture of the steam generator, we have 2 helical coil steam generator within our reactor. This particular one was tested, model tested, scaled up in Via Vicenza, Italy, at the Italian CET labs. We have our fuel assembly, which is half height, has been tested. In fact, I have one outside of my office. It's about 6 feet tall. The upper module mock-up that you see in the left-hand corner is the actual mock-up of the top half or the top 1/3 of the upper module. We use that for maintenance testing, hands-on, etc. On the bottom, you see the command center. This is a very important product. It's digital. And you'll look, for each module, there's a panel. So as you see, there are 12 panels. The NRC has approved the fact that we can operate all 12 with only 6 operators at this time. In fact, we're in discussions right now to limit it down to 3. Why can we do that? Because the passive safety nature of this module is such that we can do dynamic simulations on these modules and show how the module will react through any type of an event. Interestingly, 3 universities now are going to own these modules for training for their engineering departments. University of Idaho, Texas A&M, and Oregon State University. And we have others who are also asking to be a participant in our program. Next slide. 2013, I was at the Western Governors Association when the Western Initiative for Nuclear was rolled out. This project is a very important project globally as it relates to the carbon-free power project. I travel all around the world, and I'll get into what other countries are interested in our modules later, but a lot of it is being driven on the fact that we actually have a real project under development or soon be under development. And so the success of this, all eyes are looking at the CFPP, NuScale, and its partners, UAMPS and Fluor, to get this project to fruition. Often it's said, and I've said, I don't necessarily need 12 modules up and running. I would like to have 1 module up and running as a reference plant so that we can showcase to the world. Next slide. Utilities across the U.S. are setting their own emissions. Despite state legislative initiatives aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions, this slide highlights the numerous companies that are all setting their own guidelines. And this is a trend that's moving across. Initially it started with Senate Bill 100 in California and is predominantly in the West, but moving east quickly. Next slide, please. Note, while early studies suggest that 100% renewables could satisfy energy needs, recent studies are concluding that without nuclear generation, costs will increase. Various studies are now pointing out the importance of nuclear to be part of the clean energy mix. And some of those studies are noted in here. Next slide. Energy Northwest retained E3 consulting firm to investigate the role of zero-emitting resources in meeting future energy needs under new state-based carbon policies. The research focused on 2 key questions. What are optimal electricity resource portfolios to achieve deep carbon emissions reductions in the Pacific Northwest? How does the availability of firm zero emission generation adding the cost of achieving carbon goals while maintaining a reliable electricity system? The study concluded that the SMR technology, known as NuScale's price point, reduced the system's cost by almost $8 billion per year. This is a significant study that's resounding here, not only within this country, but outside. Next slide. Low-cost SMRs reduce the need to overbuild renewables for capacity purposes. Renewables continue to be valuable resources that exist in a system with a low-cost SMR P3 study performed for Energy Northwest. A system comprised of all renewable requires a substantial amount of resources to ensure system reliability. A system with renewables and SMRs like NuScale results in needing much less renewable generation to ensure a reliable system, avoiding an overbuild of renewable generation in amount of tens of gigawatts. A system with SMRs avoids the overbuild. So to give you a sense of footprint for NuScale, to generate 720 megawatts of power, typically that's just on a footprint of about 14 hectares or about 34 acres, which is in consideration of what it takes to generate, the same amount of energy on a wind or solar farm is quite amazing. Next slide. The coal plants, originally we envisioned the fact that the predominant market is going to be outside this country. However, what we're seeing with clean energy mandates, that many of the aged fossil plants are beginning to retire. And if you look at what's depicted here, 73 plants or 38 gigawatts by 2030, and going on out to 2040, 239 plants. What we're looking to do is, because a lot about this is jobs. A lot of these coal facilities are in small communities. We're doing analysis right now on if we were to put a NuScale Power modules into the existing coal facility, how many people can we cross-train to run that? And quite amazingly, many of those people who are now operating coal facilities could in fact be trained to run a NuScale plant. Next, please. I've been on this job since 2008, and we've had numerous utilities on what we call their NuScale Advisory Board. All of these that are depicted here are currently on the board. They come on, they come off, but the importance of what they bring is that as we are going through the technical analysis, most of these people that were present were nuclear operators themselves or chief nuclear operators. So as we went through the technical analysis, each of these companies would come in, and it was invaluable to ask very, very difficult questions. And we still have this panel intact. We also have what's called the NuScale Technical Advisory Board that are made up of former NRC commissioners. We have an Admiral Navy that ran the nuclear program, the Naval Reactor Program. So we've got a lot of subject matter experts that have helped us through this process. Next, please. North American opportunities, as we get closer to line of sight of achieving our license application to the NRC, we're seeing interest from generally across the Northwest and Southwest utilities. Canada has recently put together an aggressive plan and a roadmap for coal replacement. And we currently have what we call memorandum of understanding. Although they're not legally binding, they're at the very senior levels of the organizations of Ontario Power and Bruce Power. We're in the process of also going through the regulatory licensing through the Canadian regulatory process. And interestingly, there's been a memorandum of understanding between Canada and the United States NRC that allows Canada or NRC to share data with Canada, which allows NuScale, because we're almost through the process, to go through the Canadian process. We just now entered phase 2, that because of that ability to use our data, It's enhanced the process, and we're able to get through at a much quicker pace. So in Canada, again, we see real significant opportunities. Next, please. International, two things are driving the need for advanced nuclear: energy security and climate disruption. And we're seeing many of the EU countries now, and Canada as well, imposing carbon tax initiatives. And we're going to see that here in the United States, which is driving a lot of the countries and companies looking at NuScale currently. Right now, we have 10 memorandum of understanding with many of these countries depicted here. We also used one in Czech Republic in Romania, to provide a financing scheme to working with, which is now called it used to be an Overseas Private Investment Course. Now it's the Financing Corporation of the United States. And they're in the process of they had a nuclear prohibition against financing nuclear. And it looks like we're making good headway to where they're going to drop that. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But you see, I mentioned Japan in there, the Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry. We're in phase 2, working with them right now on seismic analysis and others. We believe in what Japan is faced with, quite frankly, is energy security. At post-Fukushima, they had to shut down 53 of the reactors. They got a few of them re-energized, but they believe that future state could very well be, instead of importing LNG from outside the country, that the SMR, advanced reactor community, could see inroads into that country as well. Next slide. We mentioned this before, bipartisan congressional support. We have had tremendous success, both working with the House and Senate, and getting understanding and appreciative what the advanced reactor community can bring to the table. These aren't your legacy gigawatt size. They're going to be competitive. They're going to be not the gigawatt size are not safe, but these are what we call walk-away passive safe. If you look down where it says DFC proposed policy change, this is a big component for the advanced reactor community, because as Alan mentioned, from a national security imperative, the Chinese and Russians particularly are using nuclear as a market penetrator, particularly into the Arabian Peninsula and sub-Saharan Africa. What they do is not only they bring their nuclear technology, but they also bring a wraparound financing scheme. With combined DFC and also our Exim Bank and our ability to bring both equity and debt into the project, it may not totally level the playing field against state-owned enterprises, but it's certainly going to help. And many of these countries and developing nations are looking to, one, reach out and bring in an advanced nuclear that has an NRC gold stamp, but also the ability and assistance from our government to help finance the deals. Next slide, please. DOE support, I won't get into this. Alice mentioned it in detail and others, but the DOE support has been tremendous. As I said, it's a public-private partnership. For those, the first award in 2013 was under the Obama administration. And then with the current administration, we've had significant, success, and the government has been behind us all. They want to reinvigorate the nuclear industry because it does provide a lot of jobs. We get advanced manufacturing, clean manufacturing facilities up and running. It's all about jobs, and it also allows us to go and compete in an international market with a U.S.-based technology. Next, please. Why is it important? As I mentioned, jobs and revenue, American security imperatives, being able to go into parts of the world we're currently not. If you think about a nuclear power plant, you build a power plant, as Doug said, the life cycle of these plants are 60 plus years. So when you go into some of these countries, you're developing relationships for over 60 years. And here in this country as well. if you think of the advanced manufacturing, if you look at a gigawatt size in terms of the supply chain, when you have multiple modules, it's a sustainable supply chain. And we're looking to bring, supply content into Idaho and other resources where right now our suppliers are, if we had to build all of them in the United States, we could right now. The question would be, could we build enough? Because as we envision this, it's not going to be building a one-off NuScale plant. It's going to be multiple NuScale plants going on around the world simultaneously. So this is, again, why it's critical that we get this first one right, because all eyes are watching. Next, please. I'd just like to say that our focus right now is doing everything we can to de-risk this job. The fact of the matter is that we have, in fact, scaled up most of their components already and have tested them. The fuel, as somebody had mentioned earlier, it's standard fuel. It's been through the NRC process. It's U.S. sourced. Somebody had mentioned MOX. There are certain countries, when I look at, and often I get asked the very first question is, well, what do you do about waste? Well, to me, our waste is unused energy. Certain countries like Japan, the UK, France, they recycle that and reuse it over and over again. Currently in this U.S., we elected not to do that, and that goes back to President Carter in 1976, I think it was, that they did not want to go forward with enrichment and recycling of our spent fuel. However, I do know that there are others looking at it right now within the government to see if it makes sense and could we do it more economically. The question was asked earlier on, how much is fuel cost as it relations to the $55 per megawatt hour? It's actually overall less than $8 of that. So it's very, very cheap at this point in time. So again, I'll leave it at that, and please, whatever questions you may have.
Perfect, thank you. First question was, will the modules be fabricated in the United States?
This is our module right now manufacturer is a US-based company called BWXT. However, the fabrication facilities will be in Canada. As part of the other modules we have, and it really gets down to what is the supply chain capacity within our country? We're doing everything we can to work with our current local suppliers. However, also it's about commercial viability. So we've got to go with high engineering but low cost contributors to make this. So first modules, US-based company. In fact, BWXT works with the US Navy, but they'll be built in Canada and shipped.
So the other question could be posed to previous speakers as well. There's a critique that UAMPS is a smaller energy provider and is pursuing this as such. Other larger providers, energy or investor-owned utilities, and for example, like Rocky Mountain Power and Pacific Core, have not pursued this. Is this true? And if so, could you comment on that or provide any reasons as perhaps why that might be?
That's probably a better answer for Doug to answer.
Okay, I'll get on that. Both Idaho Power, Rocky Mountain Power, Portland General, Excel, all those are on the NuScale Advisory Board, and so they are following this technology going through as so I wouldn't say they're not pursuing it. Right now, they're still relying on existing capacity, most of them, to fill in energy with renewables because that happens to be the lowest IRP. As I said, with us, we have made a determination, and actually we do have shutdown dates for most of the power plants right now, the coal plants, so we do have dates, but we do need replacement power inside of our IRPs, and we do not have the capacity to support the variable energy there. So I wouldn't, rule it out. Idaho Power has been probably the most focused of the three out there. that I just mentioned. But they're all, like I say, they all are on the NuScale advisory board. We talk to them all the time, see them all the time. They're well aware of it and like the technology. It's just a matter of them getting there. If you're familiar with the regulatory environment, to take resources in and out of their portfolio is a much different path than it is for municipals, if you will. And having said that, public power is one of the larger drivers in the West on the system zone, and we have a lot of interest from the public power sector on the project.
Thank you. The last question I'm seeing here, at least for right now, is going to be, I'm going to direct to Mason. Where is the NEPA process for this project? If you could comment on that.
Sure. There will be a very robust NEPA process. The National Environmental Policy Act is what the acronym stands for, and it requires, before the federal government makes a significant decision that can affect the environment, that they study it. And specific for this project, the two federal agency actions would be related to the NRC license application. So the Nuclear Regulatory Commission would be the lead agency compiling an environmental impact statement. So that process would kick off once UAMPS has submitted its NRC license application. There's currently work being done up at the site, site characterization work to support the application process. That is being performed under a categorical exclusion under NEPA. So there's not an environmental assessment or environmental impact statement associated with that work. So once the application is submitted, then the NRC will be compiling the environmental impact statement. That, of course, will have lots of public involvement, and the Department of Energy would also be participating in that NEPA process, given that the project would be located at the Idaho National Laboratory site. So there will be a very robust NEPA process. We've been already in discussion with the NRC on the NEPA process, as well as the Department of Energy. And additionally, we've been coordinating with the Shoshone-Bannock tribes. The INL is situated on their ancestral lands. So we began engaging with the tribes as part of our initial siting analysis for the project. So a very robust NEPA process is ahead of us and has really already been underway to a certain extent.
Perfect. I'm not seeing any questions as of right now, so if there are some, I think we'll probably proceed to the break. So if there are some questions, I will see them and we can make sure they are asked. But I want to thank everyone for participating in this segment. The break will conclude at 12:15. So I guess we can resume at 12:15. Thank you.